Someone tell me, are we live? Someone confirm in the chat if we're live or not.
I think we are. We are.
We are.
Oh,
okay. We are. Let's go, baby. All right. Sorry about the technical difficulties. Took a while to get here, but we are live. Hello there. My name is Greg. I am the host and creator of Survivor Time and Change at The Ohio State University, and we have a lot to talk about. But before we get there, I want to introduce the people who are helping out with recapping, dissecting everything, and just going over everyone, everything, every move. Let's talk about the premiere, guys. George, if you want to introduce yourself first.
Hey, it's me, George. You thought you were gone or rid of me? No, I am back, and I am infecting all other Survivor shows on air. If you don't know me, I'm one of the co-creators of Survivor Michigan and the original host. Greg, thanks for having us on here. I'm ready. I got props. Rip Kaki. I'm really sad she's gone. It had to happen, and I'm really excited to talk to you, Greg.
Excited to talk to you, man. I also have to say, as someone like who had me on your podcast, I'm honored to have you on here to talk. I think we're bridging the gap between two survivors, rivals on the field, not rivals in Survivor. So glad to have you here, George.
Rivalry.
George, I'll let you introduce, I guess, whatever order you want. Pick your favorite out of these.
Oh, you can't. Okay. All right. Well, we kind of are doing a takeover here. It's all Michigan guests today. And I'm going to go in alphabetical order, a little throwback season 4 Survivor. So let's start with my girl, Brittany.
Hi, George. I'm Brittany. I was on season 1 of Survivor Michigan, and I helped produce season 2. And I'm honored to be here.
We're honored to have you.
Very Brittany.
Alphabetical order is Liz, right? There's no one else here.
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay.
Go for it, Liz. Yeah, all you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Liz. I was on Survivor Michigan season 1, and I also met Greg 2 years ago, but he doesn't remember.
Oh, shush. I'm never going to hear the end of that, and I'm sick of it. We'll talk after this. We'll talk.
Yeah, no, we'll talk. It's fine. We're cool. All right, Cooper.
All right, last, certainly not least, we skipped alphabetical order, but I'm Cooper. I was also on season 1 with Liz and Brittany, and I then took over from the amazing host, George, and hosted seasons 2 through 4 of Survivor Michigan. And also very pleased to be here, Greg. So thank you for having us.
Of course. I'm glad to have you guys here. I'm excited to break everything down. After having seen everything you guys went through, I think Survivor's fresh in your mind. I want to hear just everything. I mean, especially you guys have thought about a lot. Your games, take a break. Think about mine. Think about ours. Think about Ohio State for a second. I know that's hard. So I guess first, there really isn't a good place to start out except for gut reactions. And yeah, just go for it. What do you think of the episode? What do you think of the cast? What do you think of everything? Go for it.
Okay.
Anyone?
Okay. Yeah. I'll start because I know it's hard for people to start on these types of podcasts. First of all, gut reaction is obviously very excited to get a new batch of anybody, but this specific batch of people is very interesting. I don't see too many similar games. I think everyone's pretty unique in that, right? Which is really fun because when you see a lot of the same personalities or the same play styles, it can kind of get mixed up on College Survivor because, you aren't really able to tell them maybe apart, especially when everybody's names are Alex or Chris or something. But yeah, it was great. We opened up with your face teleporting around campus. So that was really fun. And I really like that you even mentioned our first season was so great. We had to do another. So you already knew the kind of season this was going to be because you were just so confident already, Greg. So appreciate the confidence there. But yeah, I was very happy with the whole thing.
I mean, happy about the whole thing, but you talked about the first 2 minutes.
Well, I mean, you're a very big.
I would hope.
I'm saying you're critical to this.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Cooper, go ahead.
You sure? All right.
Yeah, Cooper, go.
Okay. I really loved you started off with all of them having to like take their like big journey as a group of like 16. I thought that was very like original Survivor, so I really loved that idea. First of all, I also really liked all the intro videos that you gave them with all their like hands and their confessionals, because everyone literally like had something. That was very funny to watch. But beyond that, the actual gameplay, I loved the characters. I think every single person in this cast brings something to the show. And I thought by the end of the episode, I knew where every single person stood. So good on you, Greg, for really setting up this first episode and setting up things to come, because I actually feel like I have a very good picture of the season already.
Yeah, so what I was going to say, one thing that kind of struck me about the episode, I thought there were a lot of strong female characters, a lot of female leaders, like a lot, like just, you know, kind of taking the lead. And I know, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting her name. It started with a K.
Yeah.
But the chemistry major, blonde K. Pelly. Like, I know she was getting a lot of flack for being maybe a little bossy, but I thought it was cool to see a lot of girls kind of taking the lead. So that was fun. And I mean, over just, you know, everyone, there were a lot of interesting characters. Also, you know, the boys were cool too. And also, I really loved about Kaki. I liked her. She seemed so sweet. And she was such a good sport when she was voted out. I guess we'll talk about that more later. But yeah, those were my kind of initial reactions.
I will say, when Kaki gets voted out here, it was a bummer for most everyone involved behind the scenes. It was like, this was someone who was a friend of the show too. Like, her sister played in season 1, and people who haven't seen season 1, Elizabeth Zagurnis was her sister, who was part of the original cast, and so we were so excited to have her, and then to have it be so short-lived, it was a bummer.
That's so like such a parallel to our game, because like our first boot, Sarah, was best friends with my co-producer Claire, and we were so like, she was a lock from the get-go when we were casting, and for her to go first, also a super bummer. So yeah, that's like, it's hard to start like the note of a season on like that, but yeah, I mean, there's still so many other people, so it's okay.
Yeah. And Brittany, what do you think?
Well, overall, I thought the intro that you put together, all the videos, and then followed by that silence, that was amazing. I watched that part a few times. The way you edited that all together, that was really great. But overall, I thought you did a really good job of presenting both tribes, because sometimes you just see the tribe that goes to tribal. So I thought you did a good job of setting both up, which made me kind of look into next week, like, will the other tribe go to tribal now, because you were giving them a lot of airtime. But overall, I think there's a lot of good. I think this season, like for us at Survivor Michigan, we had like one season that was more characters, another season that was more gameplay. And this season, I think, will be a lot of, I was seeing more gameplay, I guess. It's like, it's not like people are big characters, but some of these people seem like huge fans. Like, I think over half the cast were big fans of the show, and only a few who haven't seen it. So overall, great cast, and especially really good editing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And like, that's what makes it so great, is that we had so many people who were like big nerds of the show. I mean, like Kelly, we already talked about, was a big fan of the show, had watched it for years and years. And then you had people who, Kaki was a big fan. I mean, she had seen a ton of seasons, and people like Autumn had seen a lot, and like Nick and Mitch and like all these people who had seen a lot of the show, which is really fun because it makes it, they're so much more into it naturally, because they know what to do and they also know what not to do. And so they're really careful with their strategy and really careful with their gameplay. So it makes it really fun. It really did. But also there's those people like Alex. There's people like Alison who don't know the game. They have no idea what they're doing. And it was really fun to see. And you see, like Mitch says, like, Alison knew nothing about the game. That's someone we can rely on, because she's going to rely on us, right? So I think that was really cool. It was really fun to see that dynamic. So unless you guys have anything else, I'll dive right back into kind of just first impressions of people and the tribes. I think one of the biggest things was you have two very clear distinctions between the tribe. Mira, right, is a very energetic, very energy, like full tribe. They love each other. They love the game. Orlipiri was a little bit bored, a little bit like lower energy, lower morale, in the words of Greg Lawrenson. Low energy, high motivation. What do you guys think of that dynamic between the tribes?
I love when there are huge distinctions like that between tribes, not only because then you can kind of put those people in those like kind of groups like more mentally to like, distance themselves gameplay wise. But also I really liked it because you could already see like the competition within them. Like they were already like, all right, it's us versus them. They're already saying like they're the loud ones, or they're saying they're the quiet ones. And I really liked that. I think I liked the Orange Tribe Orlipiri, I believe is how you pronounce it. Yeah. I liked them more, even though they were quieter. I think the other tribe has some standouts, but I think the Orlipiri, even though we saw more of them because, they went to tribal council, I think they have a lot of, regardless of high gameplay, really more entertaining people because they might be more subdued. Sometimes when you have people who are really bombastic and stuff, they're kind of playing to the camera, but these people seemed maybe a little bit more genuine. That's not to say the other tribe didn't have that, but I saw a lot of maybe star power on that tribe. But yeah, I really liked having that distinction.
Yeah, there was a lot more. The reason to me why, correct me if I'm Mira.
Yes, you got it right. No one else could until like probably 2 weeks in.
I feel like they had a lot more leaders on their tribe, and that's why they were so much more energetic right away. And so that was a big distinction for me to kind of separate the tribes. But I think moving forward, that can also be very much a detriment. You're going to have, you already kind of see like Kelly, and she said her and Stephanie were like, had very clashing leadership styles. So I think going forward that energy and all that like leadership and like rah, like, let's go get it. Like that's going to become an issue at some point. So I'm very curious to see when that might start setting in.
Anyone else on that topic, or are we?
One random comment. You were just talking about Alison. I really liked her, and I just got a good feeling from her. I feel like she'll go far. She also looks like Julia Roberts, like it. And yeah, I don't know why. What?
She totally does. You're right.
I know that.
Wow. We'll make a side-by-side meme of that. I'd like to see the comparison.
Wow, she looks like a young Julia Roberts, and so she does. If Julia's watching this, like, I think that I have like such a girl crush on her. I think that or not Julia, Alison. Not actually Julia Roberts. I doubt Julia Roberts is watching this.
Surprise! It actually is Julia Roberts.
I thought she seems like the kind of person who will. She seemed to right off the bat get along with a lot of different kinds of people, and she's not super threatening, maybe partially because she's not a super fan. And I think that she'll do well. But yeah, kind of echoing what other people were saying about like, I like that the tribes are very distinct in personality. I think that's kind of fun. And that's how our season was. So
I can echo does she go by Alison, Allie? Everything you were saying.
She goes by Allison, and so for the first episode, they kept saying Allie, and I'm like, who's last name? Like we had Allie Donahue, right? Allison, and we fixed
Matthew. We had the same thing, yeah.
We'll maybe talk about her later, but I'm a huge fan of her. She's at the top of my list. But I think can I not call them the Yellow Tribe? Mira. I think they just have they have bigger personalities, and I think those personalities are going to eventually clash. Like you have Nick, who's talked about the merge 3 times. It's the first day. You have Simon, who's wearing a buff. Kelly's on that tribe, right? And she and Simon are already like at each other. And I think the Orange Tribe being more subdued, I think they could actually maybe come together and be like more tight, like going into a possible future swap way down the line.
So I think what you guys kept talking about, like some of the dynamics that are already there. And one of the things with this episode was, yes, like it was a unanimous vote at the end, but my goal was not to tell the story of the vote, but tell the story of what's next, right? So we set up a lot of dynamics on both Mira and Orlipiri. I guess like as we go through this, we'll get on Orlipiri once they get closer to the vote. But let's start with Mira and some of the relationships there, because you guys already mentioned Simon and Kelly already are at each other's throats. So let's dive a little bit into those characters there. What did you guys think of Kelly? What did you guys think of Simon and Nick and all those guys?
Oh, I guess I'll start.
Not everybody at once.
I don't want to start every time. So
okay. Kelly. So my notes on Kelly were like I watch people's pregame confessionals too. So I thought going in that she was going to be like very smart. She's like seen the game, like kind of make sure to like lie low and not be too like seen early. But she just didn't do that at all. She's off literally in the first like trek, just like running up hills, like looking for idols. And then she's like leading all the stuff at the banner making and like already like at people's throats. Like, I don't know. I love her, but I thought for somebody who had seen the game, she was not able to like keep her opinions and thoughts to herself. Like you see again with her talking to Simon, she's like, "Yeah, I was out walking 10 miles looking for the idol with no clue." Like that's just not something you say to people on the first in the first week. So I don't know. I thought for someone who's seen the show, she could have played it a lot better.
I was thinking the same thing. My notes from her pregame confessional, she said she called herself the nerd and the Cochrane of the season. And I heard that. I'm like, I love this girl. She's going to do great. Like she knows what to do. She'll be strategic, have a good social game, but also she won't be too out there. And then I heard her say something like, I'm not here to be ordinary in her pregame. And I'm like, oh gosh. And then you see her walking alone. Yeah, I don't think she'll
follow the chaos because you didn't want to be ordinary was her quote. Yeah. It's some quote from the book. I looked it up once and she actually got it wrong in the confessional, but the message was there.
In defense of Kelly, I think one thing I did notice is that I think she's at least a bit self-aware. In her conversation with Simon, afterward, she was saying, I don't think I can trust him. Like she definitely picked up on the fact that Simon didn't trust her and was just lying to her. So she at least, it's not like she's oblivious to how other people view her, maybe. I think that she knows, I think she said, she made a comment about how she didn't want to start out too strong and she wanted to kind of be in the back, but it was hard for her not to be a leader. Like, I think that's just her instinct. So, but she's self-aware, like she knows. And then Simon is one of those guys who's like, well, she obviously thinks that we're buddy now, like he thinks that he, like whatever he is trying to come across as, she is obviously just, going along with that. And then the guy on the other tribe, Mitch, did the same thing where he was kind of he was talking to people at the beginning and then he was like, I don't actually care about these connections at all. But to me, it came across very strongly that he didn't care when he was talking to one of the girls at the beginning, kind of asking her questions. He didn't seem to be interested in the conversation at all. And I think that people pick up on that. And those are the kind of people that don't realize that other people are able to see things. I don't know. So
I'm definitely in Liz's camp as well. I can see all the mistakes she was making for sure. And I mean, everyone was talking about those mistakes. But I think a better thing to have in the game is a better perception of yourself. And I do think that, in Kelly understanding what's going on with herself right now, I think the longer, if she stays, the longer she's in the game, the better she will be. So I think she has huge merge upside if she gets there. Right now, she can dig herself out of this hole. But yeah, I did really like that after the definitely big fumbles of telling everybody your game up front and looking for the idol. I'm glad that she at least understands that she can try to move on from that, but I don't know if the damage is already done. What I liked was that there's actually a completely, I think, opposite character, which Greg just brought up, which was Nick, that I kind of wanted to talk about. I'm actually not at all high on Nick. I think he's probably a really good person, and I think you can see that he's socially a really nice guy, but I think he thinks too set in stone. There was a couple quotes that he had. Let me see here. He was basically in that kind of ride thing he had going on with Stephanie and Ryan after the first challenge. He was saying all we have to really do is just keep winning and our, as long as we can steamroll the other tribe, we'll be fine. That's something that people say at the beginning of every single Survivor season, no matter if it's college or not. They're like, this is great. If we just keep winning, we can pick them all off one by one and we'll be the finals. And it never happens. But I think in his head, he's like, well, this is so easy. This is all we have to do. And then also in his connection with different people, he was like, okay, all we have to do is get this 5. We're rock solid. It's over. And I don't think he's going to be thinking about any potential cracks within that. So I don't think he has as well of a perception of himself like Kelly does. And I think he's thinking too far ahead right now.
I definitely want to jump in on the whole Nick topic here because I had very mixed opinions on him. So to me, he's set up very well come merge. I think he does have a good solid group with him now. He's got a lot of connections already on the other tribe. So he's got connections in the sense that he knows people. But my worry for him was a lot of his talk was very strategic. And so he made a good connection, it seemed, with Simon, and obviously he's very, very good friends with Mitch. But I worry for him in the long run that he's not going to build like the deep social connections that he's going to need. As well as there was like one thing he said in the car that really jumped out to me, and it was when he was bringing Ryan into their alliance, and he said, "We've got 3, Ryan, do you want to be our 4th?" And then, "Oh, perfect, we can tell Spencer that he can be our 5th." That's not how you make an alliance. You don't say, "Here's 1, here's 2, here's 3, you're 4 and you're 5, and oh, now we got the numbers. Perfect, we're good to go." I mean, that to me was short-sighted.
Another thing that stood out to me that Nick said was when Mitch was telling him that he told what was his name? The one that Mitch got really close with, Greg. Was it Greg?
Yes.
Yeah.
Greg, he told Greg about their prior relationship, and Nick was totally cool with it. He was like, "Oh yeah, great, I trust Greg." And it was like what they met in the interview process. So it was that just I don't know, that kind of stuck out to me because I was like, if I were Nick, I'd be a little bit more concerned that now this guy that I hardly know knows about our secret relationship and could easily tell other people on the tribe. So I think he's a little bit too set in what's gonna work out in his mind. You know, like he has something that makes sense to him, but he's not thinking about what all these other people could potentially do to mess up his plan.
Right. And I think like it is. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Brittany.
No, I think Nick's someone who he has maybe the most relationships out of everyone right now, and he's set up really well. But I think he's going to be someone who's blindsided really easily because, like Cooper is, he's set so in stone with everything he thinks is going to happen. It's so easy for one of his allies to realize that and vote him right out. So I think he's going to be a pre-merge blindside just because he mentioned in 2 or 3 different times he's already talking merge. It's day 1 or 2. I think he's going to go soon.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things with Nick is you do hear him say, like you're saying, Brittany, like he talks about the merge a lot, and he almost does think a lot of it is set in stone. He's gonna make it there. He's gonna win challenges. Never gonna go to, like, he doesn't think he's gonna go to tribal, right? Like that's the goal. He gets there, he meets up with Mitch, and bam, winner. And like that is kind of the perception that you get in the first episode too. But for what it's worth, he does have a lot of connections on the other tribe, and I think that's also worth mentioning. Is that Mitch, yes, is a really good friend. He also lived on the same floor, and this is like kind of conveyed there, but there's that same scholars group as both Mitch and Regan. That's how they knew each other. And so they actually had a prior relationship coming in, those 3. And the only one who seemed to really want to keep it a secret was Regan. So like when Mitch says that, I think it is worth mentioning. Why does Nick just look at it and say, "Oh, yeah, like that's fine. Greg knows it. Fine. Yeah, he knows we're best friends." He even says it like, "Yeah, that's cool." Whatever. So definitely something to look at. He has these relationships, but not keeping it secret. Cool. Anything else on Nick?
Cool. I guess just like the fact that I when I was writing all my notes about Nick, I just thought of those like completely different parallels between him and Kelly. Because even though Kelly doesn't have the connections, I think she can do the most of it with the small amount she has, like with her connection, I think with Alex and stuff like that. So I think like he's got the most to lose and she has the most to gain. So I kind of like something between those two. There's definitely a difference in how they're playing.
Yeah, so let's talk really quick. I want to talk I don't want to like spend way too much time on Mira, but like the dynamic that eventually ends up coming up is Nick's alliance that ends up forming, right? He has Ryan, he has Stephanie, he has Spencer, and then he has Simon, right? So it's that 5, right? It's Nick, Simon, Ryan, Stephanie, Spencer. What about the other 3? Let's talk about them, because we have Kelly, obviously, who goes head-to-head with Simon. But let's talk about Alex. Let's talk about Brooke. What about those 2?
Well, okay, so
Here's the Brooke stand. Here it comes.
yes,
Me
I'm getting there.
Go ahead.
So, but I'll start with Alex and Kelly. To me, those are the two that are very much on the bottom of that tribe. I think even when you hear the other 4 or 5 kind of like talk about it, they don't really even bring up Brooke so much as they're like, oh, like Kelly and Alex are the two on the bottom. Like nobody really talked about Brooke that much, which is why I stan Brooke. I will put this out there. I stan 4 people on this cast. She is one of them. So number 1, here we go. But I think well, first of all, I loved her pregame interview. I mean, that to me was kind of why I was drawn to her initially, as well as she picked up on the idol clue so fast, and literally it fell out, and she just stepped on it and grabbed it. Like that to me was like, you need that kind of just quick thinking in this game, and so that to me was amazing. And then yeah, I think she's going to be really smart, and she's going to fly under the radar, and she's not being noticed by a lot of people right now, which I think is the perfect game pre-merge. So I think she's doing everything right at this point. So big Brooke stan.
Brooke is also, I have a list of my 4, and Brooke is also one of them. I think with Alex, though, I think she can really be contrasted to Alison on the other tribe. Like, Alison's doing such a great job. Like, both of them seem to be, I don't know if there's someone else, but both of them haven't seen the show, and Alison's making social connections with everyone. There's so many meetings with her and everyone on our tribe. And Alex, did we see any of her at all?
It's kind of like Kelly when they were driving together. Yeah.
I think I wrote in my notes, where is she? ? So I don't think Alex will do very well. Whereas Brooke, everything Cooper was saying with the idol clue and just the way she talks, and in her pregame interview, when she was talking about how she wants to play an honest game, I think she will go under the radar for now and then come at and make her big moves later on in the game.
Yeah, I think Brooke is under the radar like intentionally, and Alex is unintentionally under the radar. So I think that, like everyone has said, I think Brooke will do well.
Brooke's even in the chat. She's given some love to all her supporters. So Brooke is idol clue is definitely worth mentioning too. I mean, we don't see a lot of where she is in the game right now, but then again, her tribe won. We don't know how much she actually needs to do, and plus she has this idol clue, so she could be set up well. I think that's really, I think the support is very well earned, Brooke. If you're looking at that, I think she's about to crash this video chat. I heard someone running up. Brooke, say hello. Brooke was at a watch party going on, so she was downstairs. Yeah.
Wow.
You can say hello.
Hi. Thanks for thinking I'm good, guys.
Oh man.
I was waiting for that. They warned me we're gonna crash this eventually, and then it wasn't happening. And finally, yeah. So yeah, we're gonna keep talking about you as you're. I think they're watching it down here.
I will jump in as the caboose for this train of Brooke love. I definitely agree with what everyone's saying. I think being in the big majority alliance early on like this can be good, but the fact that she's not necessarily in it, but not in their, potential target right now is a very good position, especially with an idol clue like that. So yeah, definitely a big fan of her. Something I always talk about in these types of podcasts is I always look how people talk in their confessionals. I know it's really stupid, but the way people are just able to talk about themselves naturally can be something really worthwhile, because then when you're having conversations with other people, you can be, natural, flowing, and, not too nervous. And I think Brooke definitely has that. Someone who doesn't have that on her tribe, which I just love still seeing him though, is Spencer. The first confessional we get from Spencer is in the basement of, I don't know,
my fraternity house. He was in my fraternity. He's actually a very good friend of mine.
Okay, well, does your fraternity have a murderous basement? Because it looked like he just killed someone and then filmed a confessional okay, so, and it was amazing. But I
remember telling him to go in the basement to film a confessional that night too. And we have these floors, and you can hear upstairs the squeaking of the floors, and it's the squeaks of 100 shoes on the floor above. and it sounds really cryptic. It is super cryptic. So yeah, I'm glad you picked up on that.
I think he either killed someone or he's trapped in that basement because he's so nervous, and that's great. I love seeing that kind of stuff. He's excited. He's very he's very into this game. But I think you can see that in his conversations potentially with other people, is people might take that as non-trustworthy. He might be a very trustworthy guy, but if he comes off like that in his confessionals, what is he talking like with other people? So, but I still love him. Like, the dude's probably crazy, and I love seeing him. But that just first confessional, I just like, that was one of my first notes. Was just like, yo, he just killed someone.
He has 200 DVDs and also buys his CDs from Target too.
I
We
love
didn't hear
that. I think Spencer's adorable. I love him. I want to be his friend.
I love Spencer, but I put a big question mark next to him. I just was confused by him. I was wondering what you guys thought of him. I just wasn't sure how he's going to integrate into his tribe, like who he seems to be aligning with right now. I have like a lot of hope for him, and I want him to do well. I'm not sure.
He's low in my power rankings. I loved him as a character. He's got a lot of like nervous energy that's going to be really fun. And I think he's going to have some funny content. But the big red flag for me was after the challenge, he said something to the effect of like, "Oh, we won. Now I can take a week off." And I was like,
Right.
No, I don't like that. So yeah, I think he's going to be funny and kind of like a weird like character in there, but I don't see him lasting very long. I'll just put that out there. He's low in my power rankings.
Agreed.
So I think another thing with Spencer to bring up is that he gets added into this majority alliance as the 5th, and you hear Nick says a comment along the lines of like, "This isn't who I had in mind," right? So let's talk about that, because Nick, who we've already talked about, like Nick has this idealistic view on the game, adds in Spencer. I mean, do you think that's going to mesh well with him as the 5th in this 5 seemingly majority alliance?
I think Spencer's out after a couple weeks. And by out, I mean he's jumping ship. Because I actually think he'll last a long time. I don't really see much winner upside for him in terms of maybe his gameplay towards the end. But I really see if he's already the 5th person, all he has to do is realize he is. And I think he'll jump ship. I don't think he has a super connection necessarily to anybody in that 5, and he is like the last, second thought to everyone. So I don't know if anyone's going to be the downfall of Nick early on. I think it might be him, just because maybe he gets nervous about his position.
Yeah, I think.
This is so Liz. I love Cooper starting.
Spencer's in the chat and also saying hello. I need to start a fan club.
Hello. What?
Look in the chat. It says hello. I'm ready to start my fan club. It was Spencer.
There it is.
Oh, Spencer, I love you.
Part of the Spencer fan club. There we go.
I love Spencer. Like, I'm sorry, I don't think that you'll go that far, but I love you.
Spencer, but
Oh, Spencer, I love. Wait, Cooper, what were you gonna say something? Well, okay, since I'm already talking, I'm just gonna finish my thing about Spencer really quick. I think wait, what was I gonna say? Oh, I think he might get a little bored in his position also, because I think this week he's really nervous because it's just starting, and so he's kind of like, okay, I guess I'm in this alliance now. That's great. But I think once he actually starts to think about the game and where he wants to be, I think he'll get a little bored, because in that conversation with it wasn't Greg. Was it Greg? Ryan? No, it wasn't Brian. Some guy, he was talking to him, and this guy he was talking to had like no opinions, and he was like, yeah, I kind of wish that he had more opinions. I guess I trust him, but and I thought that was a great line. I think that he was just kind of like, well, this person is fine. I don't really feel a connection with them. They're very boring, but like it's fine.
Spencer had one of my favorite quotes. I totally forgot. It was one of the first things in the episode when Raphael went to go get the envelope. In that confessional that I was talking about, he goes like, I hope everyone knows that I would go get that envelope. Like, I hope everyone understands that I am someone who would open said envelope and speak to everyone. I was like, But why? Why is that so concerning?
Well, he wanted everyone to know that Raphael's not just a big player because he read the envelope. Like, come on. Like,
I want people to know I'm here to compete and read envelopes. I love him.
all right. So I think we've talked a lot about Mira here. But if you guys have anything else closing out, I think like the main dynamic that we see established here, right? We talked about the Simon and Kelly thing. Simon has told everyone, let's go for Kelly. So it seems like it's almost a 4 against 1, almost 5 against 1 at that alliance. And then the other 2 with Alex and with Brooke. So a lot to think about with that tribe. If you guys have anything else, otherwise, I think we should move on to Orlipiri. I think there's a lot to talk about there. I'll move on. Okay, cool. All right, so Orlipiri, the very low energy tribe, but the high motivation tribe, in the words of Mr. Greg Lawrenson, who everybody realized this. This tribe is not that excited, at least like outwardly excited to be doing everything, but they seem to jive pretty well. So let's hear your first impressions on who you liked, who set up well, who do you think screwed, whatever. And whoever wants to start out with that.
Okay, I'll do it because I want to be the team captain for this tribe because this is my tribe.
Thanks, Dad.
I really like a lot of people on this tribe. I won't say anything about my winner pick or who I'm super like. These will probably win, but I am big fans of everyone, including, like we talked about, Allie, who I was worried about considering she didn't know much about the show, but just like our dearly beloved Lavana, she is breaking out of her mold immediately, even though she doesn't know too much, and is just being social. That's all you really need to be doing this early on. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this tribe, and we can get into everything later, but just broadly, let's go.
Now, I'm going to break some stuff down for you guys before we get into this, because now that we've talked about Mira, some other things I want to talk about, and it's really evident in Survivor Michigan, is previous relationships, and I think this kind of might dictate where we go with this conversation. So, some previous relationships before the game that are notable, especially on Mira, is Mitch and Regan, right? They know each other from beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
I think another one worth mentioning that might be a little off the radar that people haven't brought up yet when we were talking about Stephanie is Stephanie and Autumn, who that's a cross-tribe alliance, right? You see one is on Orlipiri, one's on Mira. And let me throw another thing that really wasn't mentioned on why they didn't talk about this in the first episode. They're actually roommates. They lived in the same house in their sorority house, and then also were bunkmates. Like they literally slept like on top of each other. Right, and so that even wasn't even mentioned in the first episode. But another thing worth mentioning, so positioning in the tribe. Another thing worth mentioning, and we'll get into this, is another relationship coming in was Simon on the other tribe and Kaki. And that's a relationship I didn't depict because you see it doesn't really come into play that much. And they were in the same business fraternity.
Oh.
So this tribe was actually a lot more well-connected than it comes off. I think that's worth mentioning before we go into this discussion.
Yeah, so I thought it was interesting that it seemed like everyone knew each other. It was like, it was hard to keep track of all of the people that already knew each other beforehand. I was like, wait, but then I thought it was interesting that Autumn said that she didn't like that she knew Stephanie beforehand. And everybody else seemed to be, pretty happy that they had these connections and they thought that this was like a solid thing. But then Stephanie and Autumn, I thought was noteworthy because they seemed to, Autumn particularly, apparently didn't really like that she had Stephanie and doesn't seem to want to work with her. Stephanie didn't want to tell Stephanie. I thought it was funny. She told Autumn that she was in a 4-person alliance, but didn't say who was in it. So it's like, well, if you're going to tell her you're in this big alliance, like you might as well just tell her. But
that was so funny.
It was a very awkward meetup. But so I think Autumn, I kind of like the way Autumn is playing that a little bit more than the way Stephanie is. I think Autumn seems very thoughtful in her confessionals, and I see her doing well. Yeah, that's what I have to say about that. Someone else can go.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say it. Number 2 out of 4, Autumn. I stand Autumn. So we got Brooke and Autumn so far.
Wow.
But going back to the whole Autumn and Stephanie thing, I thought their dynamic was very weird. Autumn has a comment at some point about like how she's not gonna let people know that like they're living together, that they're friends. So they're trying to like hide it, and I think that's a good way to share a lot of information and eventually use that down the line. But then they like go to talk, and all of a sudden they're both like, I don't really want to tell you anything that's happening on my tribe. So it was like, we're going to work together, but we're not going to give each other information. It was very weird to me. So I think they are going to have to figure out what they actually want to do with that and whether they want to really work together or not going forward. Because to me, it was very unclear.
Yeah, I'll
Just a moment. We lose Brittany.
Oh, Brittany, did you die? Are you hello?
Someone messaged her or something. Let her know.
I'm
We might have.
She was so excited that she blew outside of the Google Hangout.
She's probably taking care of Bentley.
Yeah, she does have the best dog in the world to take care of. So
Okay, I just texted Brittany. Also, one quick thing I wanted to say about that though, with the meetup, it was so awkward that I questioned if they even are friends, like actually, or if they kind of secretly hate each other. Because it was so like, give me a hug, like, and I was like, are you even actually friends? Like, oh, Brittany, you're back.
oh, Brittany's back. Okay, cool. I really actually like this dynamic. Whenever we see stuff like this in College Survivor, it's either I know them and so therefore I don't want to work with them because I don't like them, or I know them and so I really want to work with them. But this was a cool middle ground where it's like, we were going to respect each other's games, watch each other's back if we need to, but we're not going to divulge every like little bit of information. And I actually really like that. That's like really hard to like get through as an alliance, because if either one of them just say, ooh, I actually don't trust that person because of how they're not telling me everything, then it's going to crumble immediately. But it seemed like from their confessionals, they were both like, okay, well, I'll keep a watch on this alliance. Like, we'll see where this goes in the future. So I really liked that. And I hopefully we'll see more of that connection. I think I was a little maybe more high on Stephanie just because of her pregame confessional and stuff like that. But yeah, I really like this. And I really liked Autumn a lot too.
Oh, Bentley's making an appearance, by the way. Let's take a pause in the action. I want to everyone meet Bentley. I mean, Brittany.
Were you talking about pregame relationships?
Yeah, we're talking about Autumn and Stephanie and their pseudo relationship, even though they're not saying everything about their games.
Yeah, I think I just will choose to not talk about pregame relationships, as I'm not I'm not a fan of pregame relationships. I know that within a college, it's inevitable that people are going to know each other, especially like those within a business frat or something. But definitely you can see in different college survivors, it definitely impacts the game. For good for some people, negatively for others. That's all I'll say.
I think one more thing to add on to that Autumn and Stephanie dynamic is when you look, even Stephanie doesn't talk about her alliance, and Autumn has this idol clue, right? And that she also finds during the first challenge, the same one Brooke has. And she doesn't share this as kind of like it's a lack of exchange of information between the two. I'm not going to give you this, and in exchange, you're not going to give me that. And so, yeah, I think what George said, they both have their own games going on, but they're talking. They're definitely talking, and they're living together. So it's kind of inevitable that they're going to talk. So I think that's really evident because Autumn is also withholding something as well. I think that's worth mentioning.
Totally.
Okay, so moving on from them, obviously, let's talk about the Mitch and Greg dynamic. I think this is one that's very prominent in the episode. Two very pretty quieter guys, but that really just seemed to jive well. So let's talk about what you guys thought of Greg and Mitch.
All right, I'll hop in and start, I guess. Well, first of all, I'll say that these two round out my 4 people I stand. So we got
Whoa! What? Wow!
Yep. I guess I'll start with Greg. I see actually a lot of myself in Greg. He's very analytical in confessionals and very to the point and very wants to talk game. But you see him talking with other people and he's very sociable. So I think Greg has a lot going for him in this game. You already see he's trying to like grab Mitch and grab Alison and get them really close. So a lot of props to him for that. Mitch, I know there's going to be a lot of Mitch and Mitch comparisons from Survivor Michigan, but I also want to throw out this Mitch and Alex Pascal.
Alex P. Yes.
From Survivor Maryland.
That's a pretty good one. I never thought about that.
Those two are the same person for me.
Jawline and everything.
Yes. Mitch's comment early about like when they're walking, he's like, yeah, I don't even care about all these like relationships I'm about to make. Like, I just need to like walk, but I don't even know what the quote was. It was so funny though. He was like, I don't care about any of these people. I was like, that is such an Alex Pascal thing to say. And they even kind of look similar. It was so funny.
Okay. Coming into this podcast, I told Cooper, I was like, we're going to agree on everything except for like one pick, and it's going to be completely different. And it's Mitch. I totally agree with you, the Alex Pascal thing. And I think I literally put in my notes, it's Alex P plus our Mitch equals this Mitch. I think he's definitely a little bit more social, but he's still definitely the cocky strategist that Alex P is. And I don't see how that could be a really good thing. Like I think Alex P, I don't think he got lucky, but I think he did really well for the type of person he was. And I think Mitch is going to rub some people the wrong way. There's no way this guy makes it all the way to the end of the game. I think he would be really fun to just like sit down and talk with. He's probably hilarious, but man, like he didn't want to do anything with any of these people. He's like, these relationships don't matter, like all yada yada yada.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Oh man, wow, that's crazy that he's in your top 4. I actually ranked him bottom on all of the ranking, like last. So that's surprising to me.
And I will say the 4 people I stand are not my top 4 in the power rankings, but he is in my power rankings. Mitch is up there. I see Mitch going very far. He actually, even though he doesn't really care about all these connections, he actually does have a lot of them, and he's going to be ruthless, and I love it.
He will.
I have a lot to say about both Mitch and Greg, but do you remember when they were creating the banner, Mitch goes, I wrote down, Mitch says, that is not the first thing I want to do, create the banner. And I was just like, what else did you want to do? Making a banner as a tribe. And he was already complaining about making a banner. And in his pregame video, he says that he has trouble with empathy and connecting to people. And that's like at the core of Survivor, you have to be able to not only sympathize with people, but empathy is like actually understand people, understand where they're coming from, understand what they think of other people, their perceptions, their perception of you, like their perception of themselves. And I don't think Mitch, he seems like a really great person, player. I don't know about him. But Greg is like, out of the whole cast, he right now is like, I would say he's my number 1. I don't pick to win. I don't know if we'll discuss our winner picks later. But Greg just is very like low profile, but he's like very smiley and also just chill at the same time. He seems like he wants to just form close relationships with a few people, but he's not this huge character. He's not all the way out there. And I think he's going to just sneak his way through to the end. I really liked Greg.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Brittany and George on Mitch. I don't know. I personally wouldn't get along with him. There's no warmth to him. Like he's just, I don't know.
Mitches are a very interesting dynamic. All Mitches and Liz.
The what?
Anyone named Mitch and Liz, there's an interesting dynamic there.
Oh yes, I did. Well, I didn't always get along with Mitch on my season that well either, but he was one of my closest allies. So maybe Mitch and I would, I don't know. But I don't know. I agree with Brittany that I think that the game is a lot about relationships, and you can't just discount those, and you have to be able to get along with people. And I think Mitch does not care about anyone, and I think that like you have to care, like you can't just, I don't know. So I don't know. I think he might be funny but to hang out with, but I don't think, I don't know how I feel about Mitch. But Greg, I don't know. I think he's interesting because I think it could go a few different ways for him, because I agree he's kind of like under the radar, seems to get along with a bunch of different people. But then I also think he seems to be Mitch's like right-hand man right now, which is a kind of an odd choice. I don't know. So yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll see, because he could go a lot of different ways. Like I think he has options. So it kind of depends, because I also feel like he could lean a bit more toward the way Mitch is, and just being so connected to Mitch could do that to him. So I don't know. We'll see.
I think his relationship with Allie should be probably pretty interesting too, because he was like, when he had a conversation with
The
her.
Alison stands are going to get mad at you for calling her Allie. Just a heads up.
So Greg and Alison having the conversation. I think that was actually it was a quick but very interesting conversation, because Greg was just like,
Wait, I'm sorry. I'm getting interrupted again.
You're interrupted.
Hi, come in. Sorry. We have interruptions from the people who are also at the watch party.
Yes, your fans
You can say hello. Say hello. Hold on. Okay. Here, hold on. I'll just these are the people who are here too. Lisa Hammett was in season 1. If you remember Lisa. Spoilers. Zach and Sam were both on the first crew and have like maintained. Sam just graduated, but was on 5 seasons of crew. And Zach.
I was the treasurer.
Yeah.
Excuse you.
And then Zach was there from the beginning, same thing, and is still in school. This is Will. He was on season 5. And then Brooke, we already saw. Cool. All right. Anyways, if you guys are gonna hang out, just a warning. All right. Anyways, sorry, we were talking about Orlipiri. Go on.
right. Alison and Greg, I think that dynamic should be pretty interesting. We've already talked about our love for Alison, but I think the fact that Greg outright was just like, I kind of want her to be my number 1 was pretty telling. I don't think I'm as high on Greg as probably Cooper and Brittany, but I do think he's got a really good sense of the game. I think end game he might be a little bit too quiet to like maybe advocate for himself for like the win, but I think he's already got good connections and he's not bombastic in any way. And yeah, I think he's doing a lot for himself. But I'm really interested in his relationship with Alison, and see where that goes.
So I think it's worth mentioning, you see the purpose of like all the dynamic between the tribes. I wanted to develop 2 things. One, you saw the Mira one, right? That 4 plus Spencer. This tribe, you almost see a 4 plus Alison, because you see it's Greg, Mitch, Regan, and Autumn, assumingly make this 4, and then Greg wants to add Alison in as this 5th, and they keep talking about that in the car. Greg says to Mitch, I want Alison like as this 5th. She'll just be the 5th, but our core 4 is still together. Where do you guys think his loyalty lies within that? Because he says he wants Alison to be his number 1, and we end up seeing what does happen with that, but Alison was almost like indecisive on the vote, whereas those 4 seem to know what they wanted. What do you think is going to happen there?
Well, I think that that's a really good thing to have if no one finds out that Greg wants that with Alison. I think it's really great to be in a dominant alliance that's big, and then on the other side have that number 1 ally. So you get both sides of information and you can choose what you want to do if something is interesting on that other side. So whether or not she comes into the fold with that big alliance, I think Greg's in the best position to make a move with her.
Yeah, I think Alison got kind of lucky that Greg is going to try to pull her in, because I really think Greg is going to try to take her as far as he possibly can, and he probably is going to succeed at that. I actually do think that. But the big thing that worried me about Alison was that the whole time it seemed like she was really trying to like push to keep Kaki. And at a certain point, you have to realize if you're in this big alliance that like you're not gonna, as one person, you're not gonna win out in that. And so you might want to try to give up earlier than she did, rather than keep pushing back, because then you're gonna start to annoy people. But so I think her game recognition was a little off, and that probably comes from not seeing a lot of the show. But I do think it's really going to help her that Greg wants to take her far in the game.
Well, on that point, I think I also thought that was a bit. I was a bit surprised that no one seemed to mind that Alison was pushing to keep Kaki so much. No one really talked about that as being a turnoff for like working with Alison. And I wonder if it's because of her transparency and like that. I wonder if that was almost comforting to them, that they knew exactly what she was thinking and like what, you know, she wasn't trying to hide that she kind of had this thing with Kaki and kind of wanted to keep Kaki. So maybe that's kind of part of the draw of working with Alison, is that you kind of know what you're going to get because she doesn't know the game as well. And so she's just kind of saying what she's actually thinking. But then she does have this thing with Greg that people don't know about as much. They don't know how, you know, powerful that might end up being. But yeah, I mean, I'm also an Alison stan. I think she's great. So.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning someone like Alison who hasn't seen the game, she does almost let emotion take over a lot of it, where she's like, I already told Kaki I can't vote her out, so why would I do that? Because that's how Survivor works a lot of times. But like, you can tell that hesitance comes in, maybe not from a knowledge, like she doesn't know much about the game, but at the same time, she also just, she feels bad. Like she's a good person and really cares about Kaki and can't really separate that from the game. So I do think that's something that comes as a result of her not knowing the game as well, like we were talking about earlier. So anything else on Alison and Greg and that whole dynamic? I guess there's a lot there. No? Okay. Cool. All right. So let's talk about the vote that goes down in Orlipiri. Because as we're talking about Alison, the hesitance that Alison has is almost what enables Kaki to capitalize on this opportunity to have a 4-3-1 vote against Regan, who we haven't talked about a lot with Regan, but Regan seems to be in this majority alliance. They target her because she just goes home alone on a bike rather than going home in cars with everyone else. So let's talk about, did Kaki do something wrong? What led to her demise? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think the number one
Whoever
thing
wants to start.
Oh, sorry. I think the number one thing that Kaki did wrong was
You're here.
car with. Wait, can you guys hear me?
I think Greg is lagging, but you're good, Cooper. Just keep going.
Okay, just didn't know. The number one thing she did wrong was, I think, getting in the car with Jake and Raphael. I think she understands the game pretty well, and you have to kind of see who's going to be game players and not early. And those two to me were not game players. So for her to try to latch onto them right away, I think was her first mistake. I think she should have tried to latch onto better game players that would create a more solid alliance, like right off the bat. As well as when she knew she was on the bottom, I think she had to throw Raphael under the bus. I think that was her play rather than trying to flip it on Regan and the whole other alliance that was already set. So I think she did make a couple mistakes, but she did get put in a pretty horrible position right away.
Yeah, I mean, I think it didn't seem that she did anything terribly wrong.
Those are quiet.
What? Greg is in a different like chat right now. I don't think.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Greg's like responding to us like 5 years later. It's funny.
Good at this.
Wait, Greg, can you hear us? Are we?
Yeah, can you hear me clearly?
Oh yeah.
Now we're good.
Now we're all here.
All right, I think we're good now. Cool. Yeah, no, I was just saying on we're talking about Kaki. I mean, I think everyone seemed to agree that she seemed nice enough and she was fine, and like there was no real reason, it seemed, to get rid of Kaki. It was just that I think a couple people said Kaki, and then that just kind of became the general consensus. Well, and it was because, I mean, I think a few people had reasons to want it to be Kaki over Raphael, and because I guess it ended up being those two. I think what Cooper said is right. It was really those, I guess it seemed like those car alliances really kind of stuck, and it was like those people who initially talked like really quickly formed alliances, and so she just quickly was on the wrong end of that. And Regan, I think people, I guess, seemed to think that they could use her over Kaki because Kaki was already kind of in this other alliance, and Regan was kind of just this sole person on her own. Yeah, but Regan was a bit more. I think Kaki could have worked herself into the group a lot better than Regan. I think people did say Kaki seemed to be a bit more of a social threat. I think a few people were kind of threatened by that, and I could definitely see that she seemed to get along with people more. Regan strikes me as someone who is a bit more cold and like difficult to get along with. I think she just is more like, I don't know, I guess we'll see, but she doesn't seem to be someone who as easily forms bonds. Kaki is a lot more like the kind of person I think that you can easily talk to and like tell things like you kind of want to open up to than like Regan, who's very like, I don't know, she reminds me of somebody that I like would have played lacrosse with in high school. Like she's, I don't know, it's so yeah, I don't know. I don't think it was really Kaki's fault. I don't think she did anything like, I think it was those really early decisions and relationships that kind of like, yeah.
To me,
Liz,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I was just gonna say, Liz, I'm shocked. You said Regan with about as much disgust as Jonathan saying Kara.
I'm so sorry if Regan happens to watch this. I feel so bad. I'm sure she's a great person in real life, but she comes across just like
cold.
Liz is coming out literally saying she hates Regan right now. I just want to put that on record.
Regan is watching me.
Wow.
Liz is-
I don't know why I just came across like so against Regan. I'm like,
A pent-up aggression there, jeez.
I don't actually have a problem with Regan. I don't know. For some reason, I just don't see her like meshing with people as much. Like I feel like Regan's the kind of person that I would like
Play lacrosse with? I don't.
Yeah, play lacrosse with. Well, I feel like I wouldn't immediately like want to align with her, but like once I got to know her, I'm sure she's a wonderful person. I don't know. There's something about Regan that just somebody else talk.
I was just saying, was it just me or was part of the reason Kaki, they were targeting her? I heard the social threat part, but also because she didn't do well in the challenge, or were they just using that as an excuse? Because for me, it's always so weird to see on College Survivor them saying that a reason to vote someone out like early on pre-merge is because they won't do well in challenges. Because at least for us in Survivor Michigan, like, I love you, George, but like in the first challenge, all I did was like, there was a bucket of water balloons. I took a water balloon out and I tossed maybe like 4 of them to Liz. And like, that's all I did. Like, I could not have possibly been voted out. And the challenges we had, at least, or during our season, even come merge, we weren't ever targeting people based on challenge wins. At least that's not how it was for us. So it was so weird for me to see them targeting her based on her possibly not helping them in a challenge, because it didn't seem like, you can't tell someone's athletic ability, or, I mean, there's puzzles, like strategy, different types of challenges. So that was weird. If they were considering were they considering voting out her over Raphael because of
Well, I actually think there's another layer to this where people might just be saying that. Like,
Right.
that could just definitely be like in their mindset of like, oh yeah, potentially that's what I want. But you just need someone sometimes early on. And if you want to just make that the reason, like, oh, this person didn't perform well in the challenge, you know, you don't want to go to different meetings throughout the week and be like, I want this person out because I think they're a threat early on, because then people think you're a game player. But if you go to them and you're just like, I think she didn't do well in a challenge, then people are like, oh, I can see that too. So I think there could be that layer of maybe they didn't actually think that. Maybe they just wanted people to think they were, you know.
And so Greg talks about that. I think it's worth saying, like, Greg brings up, like, fair or unfair, we don't have that much to go off of.
Right.
And he is the one who also brings up the social threat, where maybe he has that little underlying reason, whereas maybe other people don't. But he brings up, like, we don't have that much. We've only been, I mean, she survived the game for 4 days. I mean, how much do you learn in 4 days?
Right. It could just be the smallest thing, and that maybe, you know, latched on one time, and then you saw every single conversation about Raphael and Kaki be about that. I think, you know, that small little rumor festered itself, and then it just became a thing. And that's, you know, could not be any fault of her own, but I do think it is worth mentioning what Cooper was talking about, is that once she was put in that position, I think she definitely could have done something different, you know, gone after Raphael maybe. She had that connection with Allie, and it seemed like she was willing to go, Alison, and it seemed like she was willing to go to bat for her. So you might want to go with that thread, because, you know, again, she might not realize this, but Autumn has a lot of other connections, and it's way too late for her to even consider doing something like that. So yeah, you don't want to do something like that last minute. You want to try to at least run with the thread given to her by Alison. But something we haven't really talked about that much that I kind of wanted to bring up was Regan. Liz, I think you can hate all you want.
I don't hate Regan.
But here it is right here. This is the stand train for Regan, and you can jump in whenever you want because I am the conductor, because I am a big fan. And I don't care what anyone says. I think she's got a great head on her shoulders. I think she has a great way of speaking. I think she might be too much of a leader to some people based on a couple conversations people are having in confessionals even. But I think she has the prowess to kick some ass, and I don't care what anyone else says. I'm in the Regan boat.
So I actually completely agree with you on all of that, George. You
cannot take this back. You are taking this back because she might be in this chat right now.
No, that's not true. Okay, so what I was saying about Regan, I did not say I don't like her, that I don't think she's a good player. I think she's what you were saying. I think she's smart. I think she's a good leader. I think she talks well. I think all of that is true. It was more like the feeling I got from Regan and as far as how she connects with people. I just think that I was comparing her to Kaki in her ability to make social connections, at least initially. I think Regan, I would be a little bit more scared to talk to than Kaki. I would be a little bit more Regan is a little intimidating to me, I think is maybe what it is. I think that she comes across as because she does seem very smart and very sure of herself, and I think she'll be a good player. I just think Kaki, just seems she's very easy to talk to, very I think Regan's a little more intense, which isn't a bad thing. It's just I would be initially a little bit more maybe afraid to talk to her. I don't know. That's all I'm saying about Regan. I think she's great.
I mean, hey, I brought the Kakis to the podcast. I can agree with the fact that Kaki might be more approachable, but for game sense, I think maybe Regan has it.
So Liz, it's essentially Jess versus Shay.
Yeah.
Jess, Regan, Kaki.
Do not compare Regan to Jess and Shay.
I mean, honestly, I am comparing Regan and Jess because my notes for Regan are blank. I don't know if I just missed the parts where she was on screen, but I have notes for everyone. And then Regan, all I have is grew up watching. I don't have anything else on her. So maybe I missed her. I know she has the pregame relationship with Mitch and all them, and Nick, but
I think she was just shown early on talking about the game before it really started. And in that of her talking about it, I got a good read on her. But yeah, towards the end of this episode, she wasn't really shown too much.
Yeah. So I mean, like you guys said, or go ahead, Cooper.
I was gonna say I'm off the Regan train. I'm more with Brittany and Liz on this one. I also got Jess vibes in the sense that her social game to me is not gonna stack up. She's gonna stick with the people she came in knowing, and that's just the sense I got. It didn't feel like she was reaching out to other people, and I think that's gonna be an issue at some point, and it's why Kaki and at the end started be maybe we can get some votes onto Regan. She's not doing much. I don't see her reaching out to enough people and making enough connections beyond the one she already came in with to actually make much of an impact in the long run.
There you go.
Anything else on Regan before we move on and talk about someone I don't even know if we've mentioned his name, and I'm shocked that we haven't. Jake.
Oh yeah, how are we forgetting about Jake?
I haven't mentioned his name yet. Let's talk about Jake because for what it's worth, the reason Kaki kind of goes home unanimously, at least, is because Autumn tells Jake, Jake tells Raphael, and everyone flips because they know it's inevitable, right? So let's talk about Jake. What do you guys think of him?
I really wanted to contrast, if you watch Raphael versus Jake, when both of them are realizing they're on the bottom, Raphael said something along the lines of, okay, cool, it's not me, now I'll go form bonds. He didn't even say, I'll use this to form bonds with people, which didn't make sense because he's on the bottom. I just thought Raphael was, way too overconfident about everything, whereas Jake was more so, I wrote down, he said, it's out of our hands. We need to make sure we are set up for the next vote. And then you see meetings with Jake, and he's meeting with multiple people in the tribe. So he's realizing that early on he maybe wasn't in this main alliance, and he was working pretty hard in making these social relationships, whereas Raphael was complete opposite.
I liked Jake as a person a lot. I don't know. He's gonna be a little too quiet and doesn't have enough maybe like gamer in him to like do enough damage, I think. But I think he'll be likable enough. Did anybody else think he was like switching accents throughout the whole? At some point,
he changed.
He had like a real Southern accent, and I was getting like Nick Wilson vibes from like CBS Survivor and stuff. And then all of a sudden, he like sounded normal, and I don't know. Anybody else?
Wait, Jake was also the one who said he was sweating like a whore in church, or like a little if you prefer, right?
That's the one, yes. He was.
Oh man.
I'm a big Jake fan. I really liked him.
Because he's an RA.
He's an RA?
Yeah, that's why you like him.
I knew that Jake and I had this like connection. I could feel I felt just immediately connected to Jake. I thought he was I don't know. I just got a good vibe from him. I know that's like all I keep really saying. I'm like, I just got a good feeling from this person. I didn't get a good feeling, but I don't know. That's like what I immediately think about, I guess, is like when I'm watching this and thinking about like, who would I want to work with? Who would I gravitate to? And there was something about Jake that I liked his energy, and I liked that he kind of tried. I liked that he at least thought about and attempted to stay loyal to Kaki, and in staying loyal to Kaki, get himself out of a potentially bad future position. Like what people were saying before, I think that he at least tried, whereas Raphael was only really thinking about this week. So, I mean, I think it probably ended up being that he was just stuck and there wasn't really much he could do against the majority. But I like Jake.
I'm a big Jake fan too. I think Brittany made a lot of good points about him. And I do actually think that country accent thing has some merit, because I wrote in my notes, I'm like, oh, the nice country boy. I was like, is he a country boy anymore? I don't know.
It's country boy. I'll have to tell him he said that.
Yeah,
he'll appreciate that. He's kind of a goofball, so I don't know if that was like intentional or not, but he'll like that.
He I don't know. I think there's like two sides to him, because I thought early on he was gonna be like almost my winner pick. Like he seemed like to have like a really nice sociability to him. He's quieter, but when he does speak with people, like it seems like he's genuinely talking to them and he's having a good time. And yeah, he was just funny, like you said, goofball, Greg. Like I thought he was that. And then there was this like turn in the episode where then he went to bat for Kaki all of a sudden. And it seemed like he was like really nervous about his position all of a sudden. And I think that's okay. I think either he's going to be really good at adapting because he was going for this big plan almost at one point to keep Kaki and Raphael. But then at the last, well, not last second, but then decided, hey, let's just make the unanimous vote. I don't want to be involved with this like a failed plan. Or he might, be too paranoid and try to make too many plans. But I'm really interested in Jake, and I have him pretty high on my list in terms of like people to watch for. I think he's definitely got like one of the best personalities here in terms of being able to make, friendships. So yeah, I'm a big Jake fan as well.
Anyone else on Jake? I think we've hit most everyone in Orlipiri. Really everyone in the cast for that part. So anything else? Okay. Nothing? Cool. So I want to talk about what do you guys think is to come? We've set up some dynamics on both tribes. We see Kaki goes home in a unanimous vote. So yes, there are alliances within that, but what is next should either tribe go to tribal council? We've seen Kelly pinpointed as a threat. We've seen with Raphael and Jake were on the bottom and flipped with the majority. What's next for these tribes?
Well, I guess I just want to start by saying Liz Regan is now in the chat, and she says, "I promise don't play lacrosse." LOL. So
let's go. Regan fans in the chat.
I'm so sorry, Regan. I have no. You're great. I'm sure. Yeah.
This is backtracking. Look, I will carry this fan base on my shoulders alone, Liz. You do not get an invite to this club. You already are bounced off at the front door.
Regan is one of the nicest people I've ever met, says Lisa.
She played some sport though, right? She played like 3 sports. What?
My goodness.
But I guess back to the actual game. I'll start with Mira. I think if they go, I think it's definitely Kelly or Alex in trouble. And I think it's going to be very dependent on how people perceive Kelly. I think she's going to be the much more social one out of the two and reach out to a lot more people. But that kind of turned to a disadvantage for Kaki in the sense that people started thinking she was a social threat. So Alex isn't going to be very threatening, and Kelly is. But I think if Kelly does it well enough and she talks to enough people to make bonds, then it could be Alex. So I think it's going to be very much dependent on Kelly and if she can make enough bonds to stick it out.
Okay, I'll agree with that. I always have to break the silence because Liz is a little timid. I understand. It's okay.
Long day at work.
I also think Liz is a little shook right now because now she's got Regan in the chat. I definitely agree with that. I think Kelly can dig herself out of this hole. I don't think she's been dealt a bad hand. I think she's, dealt it to herself. But I think because she realizes that, she, is going to be able to do something, hopefully, because I really am a big Kelly fan. Hopefully, Brooke is involved with that and maybe even finding this idol, because if Brooke's not a part of this major alliance, hopefully, she can team up with Kelly, because just Kelly and Alex can't take on the world. So hopefully something happens with that. I hope something happens on the other tribe where Regan has this amazing epiphany and finds the idol somehow, but she doesn't have the idol clue, sadly. But I think that Jake is pretty safe if it's between him and Raphael, just because Raphael's name was brought up before. But I don't know where it would go if it was one of the other people. So I'm saying it's probably Raphael on there, and on the other tribe, I think Kelly's going to pull something out, and it won't be her.
I think Orange is losing and Raphael goes home, but if that doesn't happen, I liked everything, Liz, you were saying earlier about, I think I changed my mind about Kelly. At first, I'm like, what is she doing? She called herself a big fan and a Cochrane. Why is she idol searching? But then Liz was talking about how in her conversation with Simon, just how perceptive she was and everything with that. And because of that, I think she is socially going to somehow have a comeback here and hopefully calm down a bit, like be less out there and wiggle her way into her tribe. And for that reason, I think if Yellow loses, that Alex will go home, just because I don't know who Alex is. Sorry, Alex, if you're in the chat. People didn't know who I was either at various points. It's all good.
Reminder, I'm currently in Alex's home, so don't say that too loud.
Wow. Oof.
Wait, Alex the nurse? Wait.
Alex.
I wrote nursing exclamation point. Okay, I like her, but
nice. You got her major.
More backtracking. You like her now, you guys.
Autumn's the pre-med, Alex the nurse, right? I wrote it all down.
Oh, I found these extra notes, apparently. I do like her.
I'm glad you could read the subtitles.
Well,
I mean,
the blood battle shirt, I noticed the little details of everyone. So.
Well, also, I mean, as a pre-med, you want to find those pieces. Yeah, I get it. I get that you spot that.
I think that next week Orange is going to lose and Regan is going to be the star of the episode. Woo! And I think that I think she's going to become friends with everyone.
You are trying to cover your tracks so hard right now.
No, I think I explained why I said what I said about Regan, which honestly I don't even remember what I initially said, but I think that I explained it's mostly just she seems intimidating, not in a bad way. Like I'm sure she's
Who has
Like,
ever
super
been
nice.
in a good way, Liz? Who has ever been?
Not a bad
Liz.
thing because she's like a
Liz.
strong.
That is Liz. When I first met Liz, when we did our first walk, Liz and I meeting each other, Liz was intimidating, but in a good way.
What? Okay, well, anyway, we'll talk about that later. But I thought, no, it's more, like she seems like a very like strong, intelligent woman who's like, I think that she's probably also super nice. It's just that's the vibe I got from her initially. Just to compare her to the way that Kaki was like talking to people, and she was also kind of on her own, so it was hard to see. She wasn't shown interacting with as many people, so I guess I didn't really see that aspect of her game. But yeah, so I think next week, I actually do think she'll be a big player. I think that if Orange loses, it'll be interesting to see her talk to more people to see like if she really integrates with that majority alliance, or if because I don't know how invested she is in that alliance, or like if she maybe kind of breaks off, or like there's a subgroup that forms, and then if Yellow loses, yeah, I think it'll be Kelly and Simon that are definitely going to butt heads, and it'll be interesting to see which faction comes out on top that week, because I think Simon and Kelly definitely are going to be against each other. So I don't know if Kelly is going to be able to. We'll see, because I mean, it seems like Simon's in a better position right now, but I don't know if he necessarily will end up there. So I'm just rambling now. Somebody else talk.
Yeah, I'll also agree that the Raphael train has burned to the ground, probably since volunteered to read the envelope at the beginning.
Was that his death wish? Was that what put him down?
It was the start of many. But no, if they lose, he is so done. So done.
All right. Anything else on what's next? Because I mean, we've covered a lot, and most every dynamic between the tribes. I really have only 2 questions left, and they're pretty simple for you guys. I asked everyone, for just a little background, I asked all of them to come up with a power ranking of, 1 through 16, 1 through 15, whoever's left, whatever. So I'm going to have you guys share that. I think we already got a little preview into Cooper's, especially. We know his top 4, but if you guys want to rattle those off, you can talk about it a lot. You can talk about a little, whatever you want to do. Sure. And then at the end, I'll also have you say your winner picks, because I'd love to hear those.
Yes. All right. I guess I will start. So I stand my 4 people. We got Brooke, Autumn, Greg, and Mitch, but those are actually not my top 4 in the power ranking.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah, let me pull that up. All right, I'll read it. We got 1 to 15. Here we go. Greg. My boy Greg. He killed it. Then we got Autumn, Nick, Mitch, Simon, Ryan, Brooke, Stephanie, Regan, Alison, Spencer, Jake, Alex, Kelly, Raphael.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
It was probably a little fast, but that was 1 through 15. Anyone want to disagree? I will fight you.
So,
Let's hear it.
Okay. So the way I did mine was I did power rankings on both tribes. I didn't want to do one for a full entire list because I felt the dynamics are so different. I did my power rankings not necessarily based on who has the most power, but power as well as who I think has the better chance to make it to the end and win. So it's kind of a combination of the two, not necessarily like who did the best this week. It was more of who do I think is going to be doing the best. On the yellow tribe, I have in my top 3. I'll just do 3 on each side. And this is where I very differ, I think, with Cooper. I think that Stephanie, Kelly, and Simon are probably in the best position to win at the end and get there with what game they have right now. I really like Brooke, and I think Brooke would be my 4th.
Simon?
Yes, I put Simon, Kelly, and Stephanie up in my 3.
All right, Cooper, who were your top 4?
So from that tribe, it was Nick, Simon, Ryan, Brooke. Those are my top 4 from that tribe.
Right. So I think that Nick is probably in the best position in the entire game right now for everyone this week. I don't think he's going to be able to hold on to that till the end. I think he has a very high potential, to get to merge even deep in this game. But if I'm looking at power rankings for an entire season, I think Kelly has something. And if she can get herself out of this next week or whenever they go to tribal council, she has huge winner upside because of that perception of herself. I think that Simon's very interesting because even though he was going to be going against Kelly, he still spoke to her and got some information out of her and was talking with her and didn't just kick her to the curb and not make the connection that first week. He still talked to her. And that was really, I thought that was like really smart of him. I think he might have a big target on his head later on, but I think he's got a good mindset right now. And I think Stephanie is probably the most sociable on that tribe, at least from what we saw. I think Brooke, being my fourth, definitely has that as well. But I think Stephanie, the way she spoke to people, she's got the social stuff there. Nick, I think he's too obsessed with the game he already has coming like into this week, and he's going to stick with that forever. I think Ryan is in a similar mindset and is kind of Nick's like kind of partner in this. I don't have much of a perception of what he specifically would want to do. But yeah, and then Alex, yeah, I didn't get too much from her, but that tribe, that's kind of what I got there. On the other tribe, really quickly, because I don't want to take up too much time. Sorry. I got Regan, Alison, and Autumn with Jake as my tie kind of for 3. I think Alison, best social player on that team. Autumn, best strategic player on that team. And Regan, best overall player. I think she's got it all. I think she can pull it together somehow, maybe not based off of this one episode, but I'm an editor. I know those editing tricks, Greg. I know what you're doing. So I think Regan's got best of both worlds there, or she could crash and burn really early on. But I don't think that's going to happen. The train is chugging along. And then Jake, I just really like Jake, so he's up there too. Never want to talk about Mitch again, unless it's about him, blowing something up because he's hilarious. But there's no way Mitch wins this game. Mitch, 0% chance of winning this game. But yeah, that's my ranking. Sorry, that was really long.
Or Orlipiri is like flipped. It's so funny.
Yes, it's totally different.
I was gonna say, I mean, you didn't even mention like Greg. You didn't mention Mitch. Like none of those people were even. All right, so move on.
My number one.
Hmm?
My number one is Greg. I'm probably the only viewer watching this who has Greg as their number one, but I just really like to root for the quieter people who still possibly could have a good social game. Cooper
said it was his number one.
Cooper's lagging.
Someone on this podcast said that.
Yeah. Greg's my numero uno, number one in the power ranking.
My thing is frozen. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Well, I have Greg. Yeah. I guess we both have Greg. And then I have Alison. My tribes are together. I have Alison, Brooke, and Autumn, and Greg. Those are my top 4. So I'm pretty similar to Cooper in terms of what I think. And then I have everyone else just kind of almost together. And then my bottom 4 are Stephanie, Alex, Kelly, and Raphael. What did I say? Oh, Stephanie, I just put her at the bottom because I think not telling Autumn who's in her alliance is just an immediate red flag. And I didn't realize like the level of friendship that they had, but I just thought that was a little weird. Alex, the fact that Greg is in her house right now I think she goes further. But she's in my bottom 4. And then Kelly for everything we talked about. And I just think Orange is losing and Raphael is going home.
Lost George. Lost George.
He got bored.
Finally.
Oh, hi, George.
We want to about him.
Okay. What?
Well, while we're waiting on George to get back, just to like the disclaimer. So Alex lives with Sam Tremblay and Zach Cushing, who are on crew. So yes, I am in her house, but I mean, I don't think that's indicative of anything.
Our other roommate also plays later on.
Yes, and the 4th roommate also played.
Season 5.
Season 5. Okay. Anyways, we can go on without George. But anyways, We have one person left to give her rankings.
Okay, yeah. So I am the worst, and I think I like missed that message that we were supposed to do the power ranking thing. But I honestly, it's like really similar. My thought. I'm so sorry. Okay, my thoughts are like really. I was also like moving yesterday, so it's been really crazy. But I would say, I almost completely agree with Brittany on the top people. I think Cooper and George also had a lot of the same top people. I mean, I think like standouts to me that I think will do really well were like Alison, Autumn, Brooke, and obviously Regan is my number one. I think that she no, but I think she'll do well. So I'll put her somewhere up there. I mean, probably below those other people that I just mentioned, but like up there. I think. Oh, I also really like. George said he put. I'm forgetting all of their names. Jake up there just because he really likes them. I really like Jake for some reason. I think that I don't know if he'll win, but I think he'll make it fairly far, hopefully. And I'm trying to think if there are any like major. I mean, a lot of the kind of like alpha male guys. I think that because there was like Nick and Mitch. And even like Simon, I would group in that category, had those, they're like leaders and they have their like, they're super strategic and they have this whole plan and everything. I think they'll probably all crash and burn. But Simon out of those maybe has the best chance of making it to the end. Hey, George. And I think a lot of the other people I haven't seen enough of to really know how to form like a strong opinion, because I think that right now, since the alliances are so early, there's kind of room for some things to change. So I don't know, but those few girls were really like the standouts to me, the ones that Brittany mentioned also.
Cool. All right, so we've been going on for like an hour and a half-ish, so we're going to start wrapping up here. I only really have one question left, and then give you guys some final thoughts, and then we'll go into some closing stuff, just let you guys advertise for Survivor Michigan and whatnot. So I want to hear, you guys are giving your rankings, but who's your winner pick? I don't know if your rankings are indicative of that, but who, after seeing an hour and a half of footage, who's the winner?
Fine, I'll do it. It's Regan, guys. I'm sorry. It's her, guys. I'm telling you, if it's not her, it's probably... No, I can't even do... Okay, I would say Autumn's pretty high up there for me, too, in terms of overall everything. I'll even get into saying, yes, the edit and stuff like that. I think she's got potential to get an idol. She's got a lot of connections, everything about that. Her connection with Stephanie was awesome. Love that. But you know what? I know the tricks. It's Regan, and you can't tell me otherwise. Dropping the mic.
Hot take.
Thanks, guys.
Such a hot take, George.
No comment.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, one person that I think we did not talk about enough tonight was Autumn. She, I think, is going to go very, very, very far in this game. And I almost took her as my winner pick, but I couldn't do it. I got to stick with the host with the most, Greg. Mr.
Right.
Greg.
Wow.
The other one.
Yes.
The other one. Not the one who's amazing at blowing out torches, by the way. I don't know how we didn't mention that, but you just went on that.
I got better from season to season. Season 1 was a disaster. But yes, I worked on it. I will also say the thing with Greg, like him having the same name, honestly, big fan of that. So he was a big. So like, all I'm saying is people named look. Little side note. I told you guys this in a group chat, but like, I played in the summer season of STC, and I was the first boot. Right? And so like, to put Greg in the winner pick, like Greg's can either do really well or they can be trash. And so I just want to put that in perspective. And I know you have him as your winner pick, and his name, like, I love it, but I don't know. We'll see. He could be really good, or he could be next out. We'll see. Anyways, go on.
My number one is also Greg, but
Wow.
if not Greg, though, I see a way for Alison, even though she doesn't know the game, to use her social relationships and make it far. And then I also love Brooke and Autumn, so one of those four.
I think I'm gonna say Autumn. I would like for it to be Alison, but I don't know. I don't see her win. I kind of see Autumn winning, but I'm with Brittany. I feel like I have most of the same opinions as Brittany on all of this. So
Cool. So, all right. Well, remember those. See how it pans out. We got a couple weeks to figure it out, but I'm excited for you guys to figure out just where it goes from here. I think, for what it's worth, without spoiling like anything, it is pretty wild. And I think this is a very unpredictable season in terms of like once we get to swaps and merges and everything. So I'm really excited for you guys to see where these people go, because hearing your first impression with like knowing the story on my end, it's entertaining. And I hear people like giggling in the background in this room even with me, because they know how it ends, obviously. And it's really fun to kind of compare and contrast those views. So I'm excited. Keep me updated with those views and those rankings lists. I love that. I have nothing else to talk about here, unless you guys do some final thoughts on the episode, on the season, whatever you want to talk about. And if we got nothing, then we'll just go to some closing statements.
No, it was amazing. It was great. I don't think it's been mentioned, or I don't know if it was even mentioned in your first season, but I love that even your theme itself, like the Ohio State theme, is meshed in with the Survivor theme. And I love how branded your show is. It's so Ohio State, even if the name is Time and Change. I really like the idea that, you know, College Survivor is not only unique in how it's played and who's playing it, but also where it's played. And I think that this is really cool that, you know, you're so heavy even on like the history of the school itself when you're mentioning introductions to everything. Yeah, even though Michigan blood runs through me, I really appreciate that, and that's really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, you do a fantastic job of incorporating like little Survivor elements with like little Ohio State elements and like blending them. So as someone who has now been on production for a little bit, for a couple seasons, I absolutely take note of all that. So props to you for that, as well as just the edit in general. I think you included a lot of very strategic parts and we got a good sense of the game, but there were also some great one-liners in there. So fantastic mix in there as well. So overall, very much looking forward to the season.
Just echoing what everyone else was saying. I think that I also really like I thought you were really thoughtful about, you know, all the little things, like even with you know, the way that you named the tribes, I thought was really cool. So yeah, I mean, I thought like the attention to detail with the editing and everything was great. I think there are a lot of really great characters. For the 57th time, I do not hate Regan. I'm sure she's very nice. And yeah, I mean, just overall, I thought it was really well done, and I think it'll be interesting to see how things go. Yeah.
Yeah, when you're talking about attention to detail, just that opening part where he's reading the thing and they have to be quiet and then they're doing a walk, like as if they're going to like a real Survivor, and even at Tribal when you have them walking out against some wall as if they're going back to camp. Little details like that just really make the show fun to watch. And when I was preparing for our season, I was watching like other College Survivors, and your editing, Greg, just you and George together, blows all of us away. It really is what makes the show great, because it is like College Survivor. It's not CBS, but you're able to edit it in a style that viewers love. So I think overall, amazing job.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I didn't expect that to turn into like a praise of STC like of me. But thank you. I appreciate it. On the note of detail, I think like that's a theme that you'll see really intertwined in this season especially. And some of the contestants, if they're watching this, are probably rolling their eyes at that. But I was big on this, and like, because I'm a very detail oriented person. Even like small things like the tribe names that you mentioned, like we to a T wanted this to represent like the second season of CBS, where when it takes place in Australia, the tribe names are in an Australian Aboriginal language. And then last season we had one in Malaysian language, in the language of Borneo. And the next season we have we have the tribe names in Swahili, which is the language of Kenya. Like we went into that much detail. And I think that is something that I'm very proud of. It was like integrating Ohio State culture and Survivor culture and really just merging those two as much as we could for an authentic experience for the contestants. So I'm glad you guys picked up on that. That's really cool to hear about. I have nothing else. I'll let you guys give your last little pitch. I know, George, I want you to have an opportunity to talk about Survivor Michigan, as well as you three and your role involved in that from just season 1 or beyond. But yeah, I thank you guys for coming on here. I'll give you your final words.
Yeah, I mean, as much as it is, originally my thing, it was passed down, and so Cooper can say a lot of that as well if he wanted to. But our show is only made possible because of shows like you and Maryland who took that first step. And so, I can advertise and say, hey, go check out my show, Survivor Michigan. But I'm just happy, that we're even here right now. All 4 of us, like, being on your podcast, it would never have happened if, Survivor Michigan isn't a thing if this isn't a thing. So thank you for taking that first step. My season's run its course, so don't worry about it. We're talking about your season now, okay? So that's all I have to say.
Don't be humble. I mean, if you guys are watching, you haven't seen Survivor Michigan, very good. Like, unbelievably good. For the one season he did run, like, George did an incredible job. I think that's worth mentioning.
Yeah, actually, never mind. Screw your season, Greg. My season rules.
There it is. All right, Liz, Cooper, Brittany.
I mean, I guess I'll give an update on the more current what's happening in Survivor Michigan. We are going to be filming season 5 come this fall. We are in the middle of editing season 2. I think I would be killed if I gave any kind of specific date on that.
How does it feel, Cooper? How does it feel?
Welcome to the club, baby.
I'm gonna hold off on that. But it is coming. So, and it is a great season with a lot of terrific characters. So I can't wait for everyone to see that as well. But it is coming.
Liz and I both graduated. I mean, George too, and Greg. But I loved being part of production on season 2 and and still being involved in this weird, nerdy Survivor college family of sorts. Liz, do you have anything to say? We graduated and left this. Like, we played a year and a half ago, then we had to watch it back all year, and now I'm kind of like closing my Survivor chapter. But Liz and I are going to audition for CBS on Wednesday.
Well, I'm just going to campaign for Brittany and Nana for Blood versus Water. So yeah, I mean, I don't really like Brittany. We graduated, so we were just on season 1, so I don't really have anything to pitch. Well, Brittany was on production. I was like, I showed up to a few of the season 2 tribal councils and dragged the Alexes with me, but we didn't. I didn't really help with it. I don't really have anything to pitch. But Brittany. But I do have lasting friendships, at least from the show. And Brittany, Leia, and I are having a reunion with her Nana next week, so that's exciting.
Warms my heart, my kids.
And Cooper, I love you and miss you, and I want to visit you in Chicago.
Please do.
And also, obviously, George, I'll make you hang out with me. This is not important to anyone watching this, so I'll stop talking. But Greg, thank you for I'm so honored that you wanted me on here. I feel like
we've met before, right? You were the first person I thought of.
Wait, really?
No.
Oh. I really sent the same message to Liz and all of us on Facebook. You're a great player. Want to be on the podcast?
You didn't even Facebook message me. George texted me on behalf of Greg.
If we're just going to instant say before we go, then let's just end this now.
Okay, that's it. We're done.
All right.
I do want to say one last thing. Greg,
Go,
thank
go.
you so much for having the four of us on. And yeah, you know what? OSU, it's tough for me to really, off the field. Survivor, we are very much one and the same. So thank you again for having us on.
Of course. Thank you guys for being here. I think it's worth saying, the people in the room with me and the people watching who are big Ohio State loyalists are going to roll their eyes. I have a really soft spot in my heart for Survivor Michigan and the University of Michigan. I grew up a Michigan fan. I went to Ohio State. So, I like you guys. Maybe the rest of the Ohio State community doesn't. But thank you guys for joining me. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Before we close up, one last thing, just on behalf of Survivor Time and Change, we want to talk about what to expect going forward. We will be releasing episodes every Monday night. The time is going to flex a little bit depending on my work schedule, but mostly between 6 and 7 p.m. is what I would expect. That'll be posted on our social media. There will be the merge episode, so right around the pre-merge or the merge episode, I haven't decided is going to actually take place on a Sunday, so I can accommodate for a podcast for Anders Norberg out on the West Coast, because that man couldn't even get to this podcast until 10:30 Eastern time, and I wasn't waiting that long to start it. So stay tuned for when that Sunday episode will take place. We're going to take a break in between the merge episode and then the finale. Other than that, I would expect these every week on Monday or that Sunday, like I said. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for tuning into the first episode. I hope you liked it. Make sure to subscribe to the page, like our tweets, retweet everything, share this with anyone you love or whatever you want to see it. Thanks, guys, and thanks for joining me. This was a lot of fun. All right, go Bucks.
Go Blue.
There it is. Good night, guys.